I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us and coming in. You know, it's always a pleasure to be able to see you and spend a little bit of time. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your farm.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for inviting us to participate in this event. It's been really heartwarming, people reaching out and doing these sorts of Zoom events to keep the cheese community kind of communicating and letting everyone know that we're still here and talk about all of the great cheese that we're still making. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sheila Flanagan. I am I guess the head cheesemaker and bottle washer at Nettle Meadow Farm and Cheese Company in the Southern Adirondacks in upstate New York. We are a 55-acre farm that works with 11 other farm families. So we're encompassing about almost 300 acres now of pasture for our goat, sheep, and cows for our mixed milk cheeses. Nettle Meadow originally started in 1990. In 2005, my partner Lorraine and I bought the farm and started expanding it and building our cheese repertoire. Kunik has always been our flagship cheese, and we have been making it with great success over the years. It's a triple creme goat's milk with cow cream that we will get to in a little bit here. We started out in the beginning back in 2005 with 36 very ragtag goats of a lot of different varieties and a lot of mixed varieties. We slowly built the farm. We started out with one tiny 15-gallon pasteurizer that worked 3 or 4 days a week, but we quickly added some equipment and other materials, added some molds. In 2006, 2007, friends encouraged us to add some sheep, which we did. We added them as lambs, which was lots of fun when they were younger. And then by 2007, 2008, we started introducing our Three Sisters cheese, which was our first 3-milk cheese. And then soon after that, our Briar Summit, which is a sheep, goat, and cow pyramid with a little cow cream. We also, even in that first year, decided to add some Jersey cows. Our first year, we had 2 cows, and we started expanding from there. Our principles have always been the animals, first and foremost. We've never made a whole lot of money at what we're doing, but we've always done all we can to increase and benefit the animals at the farm. One of the things for those of you who may not be familiar with us that we do is we have the Kemp's Animal Sanctuary at our facility, where we have lots of younger animals who might be differently abled, may not have all of their legs or may have some other issues, and we have so many retired animals, retired sheep and retired goats that have worked for us for sometimes 10, 11, 12 years, sometimes for 3 or 4 years, and something happened and they needed retirement. So because we're working with all these other farm families now, we're able to really focus mostly on the sanctuary animals at our farm where the cheese plant is. And so we have tons of these retired animals and other sanctuary animals, from, you know, donkeys to goats to sheep to just pretty much anything under the sun. Just yesterday, somebody came and dropped off truly the most cantankerous potbelly pig I have ever met in my life. She is probably 10 or 11 years of age, quite a character. And Lucy, she's the newest member of our sanctuary. Other things that are very important to know about us is not only do we care about organic and natural foods for the animals, but we insist upon all natural, high quality ingredients wherever possible. And really always for all of our cheeses, from natural lavender flowers that we use to make a tea to put into our honey lavender, to really some very high quality small batch ales and bourbons that are made here in the Adirondacks that we use for cheeses like the Amber Kunik. The other principle that is extremely important to us is that everything is handmade. These days, there's a lot of buzzwords. People like to talk about artisan products, handmade products. One thing that is incredibly important to Nettle Meadow is everything really is hand poured. We hand pour the milk out of cans into the vats so that the milk doesn't get beaten up. So that it has the best quality long-term flavors. We cut every batch of cheese by hand with small cheese knives. It is not mechanized. And then we hand pour everything from those cheese vats into molds every day, and then carry them down to our aging room by hand as well. So it's really all a labor of love. And when I say that, I truly mean with the emphasis on labor. We probably have 12 to 15 people helping out in the cheese plant, some from the farm side as well, during different periods of the year, plus myself and Lorraine. So it takes a pretty large group to produce the moderate amount of cheese that we produce every day. And, you know, we have been well rewarded by awards. We've won awards from the World Cheese Championships, from the US Cheese Championships, numerous awards from the American Cheese Society. And we've been lucky enough both in January 2020 and January 2018 to receive the Good Food Award for the Kunik that we'll taste first. So those have all been those have been wonderful awards, and that's certainly helped us to get the word out there about Nettle Meadow cheese and Nettle Meadow Farm. So with that little bit of background, I also should jump in here before I get too far afield talking about cheese. Today, this Zoom is coming to you from our new facility, actually from the retail shop of our new facility, which is a 14,000 square foot building with about 6,000 square feet of aging space, which is really fantastic for us. We started out with a 15 by 15 foot aging room, and then expanded that to about 500 square feet, and then maybe 800 square feet. And I think now we're up to about 1,600 square feet of aging space, but we're producing so much cheese. Some of you may have seen our videos of our aging rooms recently, just chock full of cheese in this time of COVID-19, where we're not able to sell to all of the wonderful restaurants that put us on their cheese plates. So we really have been overflowing with cheese, and happily we've found good ways to handle that cheese, and have sent several hundred pounds, and actually into the thousands of pounds now, of cheese to local food banks in the area. But going back to my original point, we don't even have 2,000 square feet of aging space right now. So this new facility with 6,000 square feet of aging space will be really wonderful for us all, to not be bumping into each other, and also to have plenty of room for the cheese as time goes by. And we hope to have this whole thing up and running by this fall. Right now, we just have the retail space and some of the refrigeration and aging area.
Tell us a little bit about each of the milks, how many cows, type of breed of cows, and who really takes care of them for you, because you have sheep's milk,
Right.
you have cow's milk, you have goat's milk. So that's a tremendous amount of milk and handling all of that for the husbandry and addition to getting it to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we started out with those 36 goats, and we grew our herd to well over 400. We have never specialized in a particular breed of goat. When we started at the farm, in fact, there were a lot of boar goats or partial boar goats at the farm, which made a lot of people laugh at us because boar goats are usually meat goats. But what boar goats are is they're also very large, hardy, big bone gals who could handle the Adirondack winters really well. And so as we grew our herd, we kept in the herd a little bit of hybrid vigor of that boar goat community that was first at the farm when we got there. We also have only worked with Jersey cows because of their high butterfat, high quality cow's milk. And so we had 5 or 6 of our own cows, and then we have partnered with 3 local farm families who had some Jersey cows, and then worked with them to help financially support them to go out and get some more Jersey cows. So it's an all Jersey cow, pasture fed group of cows that also receive a small amount of a non-GMO grain in the wintertime. And then our sheep have always been East Frisians. We started out with a tiny group of 13 lambs from Old Chatham Farm back in 2007. And we have continued to grow that herd and grow that herd. What we did starting in 2017 and kind of completed the transition in 2019 is we looked around at our animals, at what we were trying to do with the sanctuary, and we decided to partner with a group of farm families that live nearby, and we leased our goats and our sheep to them with the understanding that we would be traveling to pick up milk from them 6 days a week. And our drivers are also trained. Some of them actually do double as farm hands. So they check on the well-being of all of those goats, sheep, and the Jersey cows 6 days a week as they pick up milk. They bring it back to the farm. We usually use all milk, and this was always very important to us from the beginning as well, to use milk within 36 hours of the animals being milked. So that's a little bit about the types of animals that we are milking, and how we manage to milk have so many animals and produce so much milk and produce so much cheese. When we started doing this, we were delivering the cheese, we were milking all the animals, and we were making all the cheese. And it was an overwhelming amount of work. We moved to distributors and kept milking and kept producing cheese. But as we've gotten older and as we've added so many animals to meet our demand, we felt the best thing would be to keep the sanctuary animals at our farm. And like I said, we're working with these 11 different families, see the animals 6 days a week, pick up milk 6 days a week. That's basically how we keep the wheels on the cart, so to speak.
So, when you're, run us through a typical day that you have. You guys both are working the farm and making cheese. So I'm sure that there isn't one day that's exactly the same, but a typical day.
A typical day is pretty long. For instance, I will put my stuttering off on the hour that I started today. Some days I sleep in till 5. That's like a weekend for me, but For instance, this morning I started at 2:30. I started pouring Chev from the night before. One of my co-cheesemakers came in and we made 5 batches of cheese this morning. We washed a lot of dishes. We went and checked on some of the more feeble. I went and checked on some of the more feeble animals pretty much as the sun came up. Made sure that Lucy was still okay, that potbelly pig I was referring to earlier. And we also have a group of kids that we just took in from Sprout Creek Farm. Sprout Creek recently ended their long history of making cheese, and we're looking for a place to place their goats. And that was another area during this COVID period where we took on a group of animals. We took on the non-producers, and then the producing goats are now with 4 of those 11 families, kind of spread them out so that it wasn't too much work for any particular family. And then, so moving on with my day, I'm loaded a truck with some cheese that went out to a bunch of locations, got my driver off who goes and picked up milk today. This whole time, Lorraine did some animal feeding, paid some bills, and then we've added to our whole workload the construction that's going on at this site, and working with those workers, trying to get some workers out the door to work here, some workers there. And then, before you know it, you turn around and it's time to cut those 5 batches of cheese we made and pour them. Wednesdays are one of our lowest number of employees, so we've kind of all had to roll up our sleeves, pitch in to get the cheese poured before I ran down here to try to get my computer set up so that we could do this Zoom meeting. And then when I'm done here, I will still have people to follow up with, a bunch of licensing and permitting still to do for the building. I'll probably have several batches of cheese that still need flipping, and I know that I will have all of the wheels of number 26 still to wash with some apple whiskey before the day is over. So it's a long day. Some days are 3 a.m. to 8 p.m. pretty easily. That's a pretty standard day. And like I said, an easy day is a 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. day.
So who's taking care of the angry little pig?
The person that pulls the shortest straw. So it was poor Tara today that had to deal with Lucy. But we have a good crew. Our farm hands are, a lot of them have been with us a long time. Some of the folks even on the Zoom might know Desiree because she's been to so many cheese shows over the years, and she actually manages our farm side now. Derek just came back to us from a gig doing big concerts, which obviously he can't do anymore. And then Tara, who's also been with us for years. So these are great people, and they know these animals backwards and forwards. They know when they're having a good day and a bad day. I can rely on all of them.
So, when you think about all of the times, I mean, you've been doing this for almost 15 years now. And, the public that have been buying your cheeses, has there been a pattern of style of cheese that you see that's been growing on your side?
Well, the bloomy rinds are what we're best known for, and that is what we have sold the most of over the years. The Kunik sales just continue to grow. We've added a couple of funky triple cremes recently, the Adirondack and the Geode, and those are doing quite well in sales as well. Fresh cheeses. What I'm noticing right now in this COVID world is we're selling tons and tons of mini-sized cheeses. So our little 3.5 ounce wheels that we have of the Kunik, of the Simply Sheep, and of the Amber Kunik, and tons of our 5 ounce cups because they're cheap. People can grab them and go. They don't have to, they don't have to wait for them to be cut. They don't have to think too much about the price point because it's just a tiny little wheel of cheese or a pretty affordable cup of cheese.
And I thought it'd be a good time for us to start. What's the
Sure.
first cheese that you want to taste?
Well, I think that the Kunik, even though it is kind of the superstar, the rock star of our grouping here, it's still a really nice place to start because you get all of those, nice, fresh yet mushroomy flavors, and you have the. Unfortunately, I was running late to get here, so mine is still a little dense, but it's a very creamy texture when left out to sit for an hour or so at room temperature. I like to call it.
Mine's been sitting out for about an hour now.
Excellent.
I've had a chance to kind of play with them a little bit.
I like to call it a buttery like triple creme with a goat kick. And the nice thing, isn't that pretty?
That is. That's got a lot of nice separation to it. I love the smell, that wonderful fresh button mushroom smell of the cheese as well. This is absolutely just such a pleasure to cut as well.
And it was really that kind of that mushroom undertone of the cheese that made us terrified of thinking about moving our facility anywhere else. But we were lucky enough to find this old Dude Ranch dining hall that has this giant cellar made out of the exact same stones as our current aging cellar. So that we can really keep the consistency and the aromas of all of our aged cheeses, which was super important to us.
So tell us about some of the awards and, a little bit more about the quality of the styles of milk here.
Okay, so the Kunik is essentially the goat's milk, and that's from our herd that, is leased to farm families. A lot of, because it's a mixed herd, for people that have dogs, it's basically what you call the American breed, which is kind of the mixture of animals. And so there's a lot of funny looking goats that belong to us that have partial ears like the La Manchas, which La Manchas are very well known for being a high butterfat goat, and Nubians, which are a little frail sometimes, both mentally and physically, but when mixed with a stronger animal like a Saanen or a boar goat, then you get some of that genetic vigor from the Saanen and the boar, but you get some of those buttery notes, buttery goat milk notes of the La Manchas and the Nubians. So we try to make sure that there's a nice balance of our herd. We're not trying to create any show goats, but we want goats that are both hardy and can handle living with a group of, maybe 40 or 50 other goats, and that can produce goat's milk that still has that high butterfat quality. And then the cow cream is just a lovely cow cream from a combination of a local dairy farm and then some of our own Jersey girls. And so those are really the milk and cream components of the cheese. People often ask me percentage-wise. Very easy for me to calculate even at this hour of the day for me, because we make the Kunik in 100-gallon batches, which for many of you probably sounds tiny, and I suppose it is, but we do it every day, and sometimes we do it several times a day. So for every 85 gallons of goat's milk, we put in 15 gallons of cream. So it's a fairly heavy amount of cow cream.
Well, it is literally melt in your mouth, creamy. It's got a little bit of tanginess, and one of my favorite beer pairings for goat's milk and that this tanginess is a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, and I've been pairing this up for myself 15 years, and this is no exception. It really goes really well with this particular cheese. You need a little bit of carbonation because there's just so much butter there that it really just fills your mouth of that creaminess, and the beer kind of takes a little bit of that edge off there. And
I always suggest a Cab Franc with Kunik, but then Lorraine always says that I suggest Cab Franc with everything, so I suppose that doesn't mean much.
Yeah, I understand that. All right, so what's our next cheese?
So I guess we'll move on to the Simply Sheep, which is the all sheep's milk. It's a little bit more. It's a little lighter. You definitely get that true sheep flavor in it. It's even after having only sat out here for about 40 minutes, this is very creamy in texture. People always ask me about when should I eat these things. Should I eat them when we bring them out of the aging cave at 2 weeks, or should I wait 3 months till they're near the end of their shelf life? And I think with the Simply Sheep, it's kind of like the Kunik. There's a group of people that just really love it when it's young and super fresh, and you get that sheep, that really fresh flavor of sheep's milk. But then it really grows so much in complexity as it gets older. And the piece I have today, just tried it earlier, it's really nice. It's kind of in that midlife spot.
There's definitely a different amount of butter. It's not as creamy, but it's really has a nice earthiness to it. This is very sweet with a little tanginess to it, but it's got such a nice balance of earthiness to it. And of course, you can taste a little bit of the rind, the mushroomy on there.
Yeah, and you know, the Simply Sheep, again, is something that we've been working on for 12 or 13 years now. So you really get that benefit of the improvements and the texture of the rind over the years, the experimentation. I really feel that the creaminess of the Simply Sheep has just improved so much over the years. And especially this time, this time of year when you've got the sheep milk of spring, that's when this cheese, I find it to be very delightful.
It is. You know, I can, you can count the sheep's milk bloomy rinds producers in one hand, right? I mean, there's not a lot of people that are doing this with sheep's milk.
That's the tough thing. I mean, you can count the group on one hand, and unfortunately, you know, you could probably count the group on 10 different hands of people who have tried it over the years. And you get so little sheep's milk, and sheep have a short production life compared to goats, and they're a little bit more fragile. There are just so many elements that make it hard to make a sheep milk cheese on the market these days that is financially manageable for people to purchase on a weekly or a monthly basis. So we're very lucky in the sense that we make the Simply Sheep cheese, but we have the ability to fall back on all of the mixed milk cheeses, the fresh cheeses, the goat and the cow's milk cheeses we make. It is a tremendous struggle for so many sheep-only producers to make sheep milk and be able to pay a living wage to their workers or their own family and try to produce sheep milk cheeses. It's really tough.
I was trying to think about, what I was going to pair this up with. and I brought out the taste elevated, the fig chutney. And typically I do that with the triple cremes and a real richness, but with this sheep's milk, it is absolutely fabulous. It really, the chutney can be a little bit intense, but the sheep's milk just brings it right down into a nice balance.
That's true. That sounds like a wonderful pairing. So the next one, we're saving the funkiest for last. So we'll move on to the Sappy U, which is just 50% sheep's milk. Sappy U is, I always explain to people that in the wintertime in the Adirondacks, not a whole lot of our staff are skiers, and other than skiing, there's not a whole lot to do. So we come up with all sorts of recipes, and 2 or 3 might make it through the kind of the tasting evaluation in any given year. And so the Sappy U was one of those. Actually, my assistant Sal came up with the whole concept of Sappy U, and I hate him to this day for it because it's a very complicated cheese to make. It's a sheep and cow's milk combination, and we add a little bit of cream because we feel that it's just a touch too dry without that extra cream element. And we also infuse it with some local maple. The town in the Adirondacks where our farm is the, I guess, the largest producer of maple in upstate New York. So we try to do a lot of things with maple. We make a cranberry chev with maple, and we make a maple chev, and certainly we make this cheese, which is a slight maple reduction, which brings out a little bit more of the sugars. And then that helps to tamp down some of the sour elements that you can find in sheep milk when you age it out over a long period of time. And then we pat it down with vegetable black ash. And the concept of the cheese is it's supposed to be all things borealis, of the borealis forest. So in the area where we are now, most of the dairy families a century and a half ago were sheep families that also used wool and other components. So sheep were, and also because it's such a stony, difficult geology for cows, and goats were not that prevalent, people had a lot of sheep. And the maple, obviously, because it's a huge maple area. And then the black ash, we'd hoped to do a pine ash, because there's so much pine in our region, but it's just difficult from the third party auditing, food safety standpoint to get a consistent amount of pine ash all the time to use. So we've kind of fallen back on the vegetable black ash. So that is the Sappy U.
So how long is this aged?
We age it for about 4 to 5 weeks before we send it out. It's kind of like a hybrid, moving towards it's a little less of a bloomy rind, moving more towards a little bit more towards an aged cheese, and it's also a little denser cheese.
How long do you think you could age this out?
Oh, we've aged it. Usually we put a best by of about 4 months on it, but we've aged it out at 6 to 7 months, and we have a stash of it that we age a little bit longer that people come to our store to buy because they know that we hold a little bit back, which is specialized. You know, the thing that ages with the least beauty, shall I say, is actually the black ash, as it starts to change colors a little bit. And so it's not as pretty as a young Sappy U, but it's certainly very delicious as it ages, and creamier.
Yeah, it really shows the maple in there. But what's really surprising is how dense this cheese is. This is a great snacking cheese for just, you know, pulling out a cheese and just sitting there. And you know, a lot of people worry about the properness of bringing out bloomy rinds sometimes. You know, it's like, oh, it's an event with a bloomy rind.
Right.
This you don't have to have an event. You just have to, you know, crack open a beer or go open a bottle of wine, and this is amazing flavor character.
Well, thank you. Yes, we have tried in the last few years to come out with a few more durable options, more economical and more durable, so that people don't have to feel like every bloomy rind has to be a fancy cheese, because we're certainly not fancy cheesemakers, so we don't want people to feel like our cheeses are fancy. And there was one thing, while I was talking about the Sappy, I realized that I forgot to mention about the Simply Sheep, which is important just from a knowledge standpoint. The Simply Sheep is actually made with a thistle rennet, so it's a little different. It's one of the reasons why I'm so proud of the flavor being so moderate, is that that it's an all thistle rennet cheese. So that's a little bit more unusual in American cheeses. More and more people are using thistle rennet, but it's still not the norm.
Well, again, you know, what makes it most appropriate for the style of cheese, you know, dictates that. So I think that's a great thing to do. All right, our last cheese.
All right, so our last cheese is our funkiest cheese, most flavorful, and that is the Amber Kunik. And the Amber Kunik and the Kunik, I think that these two wheels that I have out on my board today were made on the same day, the same batch of cheese. And the thing that I find the coolest about bringing Kunik and Amber Kunik to a tasting is that they really show how much of cheese isn't about the maker, but about the affinage and the care that is taken with the cheese while it's aging. Because you have the bloomy cheese, which has been sprayed with Penicillium candidum and turned and cared for in the bloomy cave. And then you've got the identical cheese, which has been washed in a combination of whey and Adirondack ale, and then whey and Adirondack bourbon, and then just washed and washed until it gets this really funky flavor. But it also, when you break the cheeses open and look at them, they're also very different from the standpoint of the interior as well, because texturally, the regular bloomy Kunik is, even though it's creamy, it's got almost kind of a fluffy component to it, whereas the Amber Kunik is extremely dense, even truly dense cheese that is still creamy, and it almost has a velvety texture to it. So I love to show them off because the flavor profile is so different, but so is the textural profile. And it's, I think, really remarkable from like a scientific standpoint when you think that it's the same cheese made on the same day.
Usual. You know, when you think about wash drying, a lot of times, you know, you think about this intensity of it. This is a little earthy, but there's a distinct maple-ish sweetness that is incredible.
Yeah, I think that the bourbon lends that to it over time. And it does. It takes patience. There is no rushing a wash drying cheese that isn't ready yet.
And the amount of flavor for this little tiny cheese is amazing. I would, you know, expect this to be, you know, a much larger cheese, but the flavor is very deep. There's a lot of layers of flavor and creaminess, and I have to say that I think that a lot of people that might have maybe not a great experience with a wash drying, trying this would be a very positive experience. There's just such a sweetness in this cheese, and you know, not overpowering. There's no, you know, negative flavors. It's not barnyardy. It doesn't have any of that. It just has a real interesting earthiness to it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And, you know, I think a lot of that too has to do with my own, I kind of have some washed rind trepidation of my own. And so I try to make it, I've really tried hard to keep the Amber Kunik something that's approachable for, I don't know if I'd say the majority of people that enjoy cheese, but a greater spectrum than some of the really strong, super unctuous washed rind cheeses.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have to say that the cheeses are exceptional. You know, I have a lot of admiration for, you know, what you're accomplishing there. I think 15 years of you know, in taking care of these animals is very commendable. And then you know, of course, getting the fun and excitement of dealing with an ornery little pig, I think is going to be a highlight for some people's day.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's quite an experience. And, you know, one of the so many downsides of COVID-19, but one of the downsides has been that we've had to reduce the amount of touring. And actually we had stopped touring the animals at the farm, which was really a drag because so many of our customers in the Northeast region and really around the country come and visit the animals and they remember their names and they come back year after year. And so when there were animals at the Bronx Zoo and at Minx Farms in the Netherlands getting COVID-19, we were worried about transfer to the animals and then transfer to the staff that care for the animals on the farm. So we had to terminate the tours for a little while. But we're hoping that once we have sufficient access to nitrile gloves again, which right now is a little hard to come by, we'll be able to have people come and tour the farm again, and then using masks and gloves, which isn't, you know, quite the same experience, but you know, we can put up with it for a year, hopefully. They'll be able to tour the farm and see the animals again, because it really is such an important part of the Nettle Meadow experience.
We got a question here. Our good friend Marcella Wright, she asked, when do you eat?
That's a good question. Some days, you know, it's just about tasting cheeses and making sure that's, you know, there's not much eating that goes on until I sit down in front of the news late at night, other than cheese tasting. And then, yeah, I think that most of my day is coffee and then cheese tasting and a meal late at night. I think I probably would be more svelte if I had a healthier time of day to eat proper meals. But oh well, it's, you know, when I retire, haha.
All right, her next question on there is, when you do eat, who does the cooking?
Lorraine has taken a little bit more of, I don't want to say, she's a little older than I am, and so she has taken a little bit more of a back seat. I have picked up a little bit more of the labor, but so years ago when we lived in California, I was always cooking, and that has totally changed. Lorraine is now, I think without Lorraine's cooking, I probably would not even get that one meal a day. So that is the truth.
So another question from Lynn is, can you update us on your new facility?
So this is the facility. we were planning on having the cheese plant up and running by Memorial Day weekend, meaning not just our storefront, but the whole facility. But COVID-19 has slowed us down. And also, even without a horrible pandemic, I think that my goal was a little over the top, shall I say. And so we're hoping now that by September, October, things start to slow down at the farm. And by then, hopefully, it might be a great time to move all the equipment over. So we've got most of the aging room completed. We've got all of the tavern and cheese plant and cheese retail finished. And over the summer, it's our goal to finish the cheese pod, which is where the cheese making will happen. So on the left there of that slide is a huge hall that we're actually going to put a cheese plant in, but we're going to keep some glass walls or plexiglass walls going through so that the public can see that amazing fireplace in the back of the picture, which up until a couple years ago was the largest fireplace in the Southern Adirondacks. So it should be pretty incredible if we can get it done, and we will get it done by October.
I want to thank you so much for, coming out and taking the time. I know how incredible busy you have to be, with everything there, and taking the time to bring us the cheese and to tell us about your story and that, and about you and Lorraine. And obviously we hope the best for you, and hopefully we'll spread the curd here, and everybody will get on the time and buy some stuff from you online, and we'll be getting back into restaurants and those things. So hopefully all that takes care of.
And I want to thank you for doing this with all of the various people you have coming in this week and next to talk about just fantastic American artisan cheese. It's important to remember all of these folks toiling and their helpers toiling. The entire our cheese plant is like a family, and we do grumble a little that we feel we're working 3 times as hard for half of the pay. But I think the true winner will be that we've been able to come up with creative ways to make more contact with each other. So I want to thank everybody for attending today, and I think that we'll all end up on the other side of this more creative and hopefully a little stronger.
I want to thank you again for coming out. I want to thank everybody for showing up, and hopefully you'll see us basically 4 o'clock all through the month, American Cheese Month. Come on board, and we'll do this every single day, and bring your favorite cocktail. I am. All right.
That's fantastic. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.